Arizona is one of the fastest growing places in America. Not just this year, but year after year. People arrive here every single day chasing the same idea. That life will be easier. That space will solve what cities took away. That sun somehow makes things simpler. And for a long time, Arizona looked like proof that this idea worked. Homes were cheaper. Cities felt open. The future felt wide. But when growth accelerates this quickly, when change happens faster than people can adapt, something else starts to happen. Pressure builds, systems stretch, and eventually, something gives. So, the question isn't whether Arizona is booming. It clearly is. The real question is whether this boom can actually last. For decades, Arizona represented a kind of promise, a place that felt different from the rest of the country. Not just cheaper, but lighter, less crowded, less complicated. You could drive for miles and still see open land. You could buy a home without taking on a lifetime of debt. You could feel like you were arriving early, not too late. People came here from California, tired of high prices and long commutes. They came from colder states, chasing warmth and stability. They came to retire. They came to restart. And Arizona welcomed them. The cities grew outward, not upward. Suburbs expanded into the desert, quietly and confidently. For years, growth felt manageable, even positive. Arizona didn't feel overwhelmed. It felt like it still had room to breathe, and that feeling became part of the identity. Arizona wasn't just growing, it was working. But something changed. Growth accelerated. Remote work arrived. Housing pressure pushed people outward, and suddenly, Arizona wasn't just an option, it was a destination. Entire neighborhoods appeared almost overnight. Construction cranes became permanent fixtures on the skyline. Highways stretched farther into the desert each year. Cities that were once separated by empty land slowly merged together. Phoenix didn't grow gradually. It expanded in every direction at once. From above, it looked impressive, efficient, endless. But space can be deceptive, because land doesn't mean resources, and room doesn't mean readiness. Arizona wasn't designed for a surge like this. It simply absorbed it, hoping the systems underneath would hold. Rapid growth always reveals weaknesses. Housing prices began to rise, not slowly, but sharply. Rent followed. Commutes stretched longer, traffic thickened, infrastructure struggled to keep up with demand. For people who had lived here for years, Arizona started to feel unfamiliar. Places that once felt calm felt crowded. What was once affordable felt out of reach. The pace of change left many residents behind. And this wasn't a collapse. It was quieter than that. A slow tightening. A sense that the margin for error was shrinking. That Arizona was becoming harder to live in, not because of failure, but because of success. America has seen booms before. California had one. Texas is in the middle of one. Florida too. But Arizona is different because Arizona exists in a desert, a place where every system depends on balance. Heat isn't seasonal here. It's constant. Water isn't abundant. It's controlled. Power isn't optional. It's essential for survival. And yet, population growth assumes these systems can stretch endlessly. They can't. Arizona wasn't built for this many people arriving this quickly. It was built carefully, slowly, over decades. This boom is testing limits that don't respond well to pressure. From the outside, Arizona still looks unstoppable. New homes keep rising. New residents keep arriving. Economic headlines stay positive, but growth can hide stress, especially when success becomes the story everyone wants to tell. Limits don't disappear because a place is popular. They don't announce themselves loudly. They wait. And when growth finally collides with reality, the consequences don't arrive all at once. They arrive gradually, and then suddenly. Success has a way of disguising stress. When a city is growing, it's easy to assume that everything is working. Construction becomes proof. Population numbers become validation. Economic headlines become reassurance. But growth doesn't measure stability. It only measures momentum. And momentum can carry a place forward long after its foundations begin to weaken. In Arizona, success didn't slow anyone down. It sped everything up. More homes, more roads, more people. All built on the assumption that the systems underneath would somehow adapt. But systems don't adapt instantly. They absorb pressure until they can't. Arizona is not an empty landscape waiting to be filled. It's a desert, one of the most unforgiving environments in North America. Every city here exists because of planning, engineering, and careful balance. Water must be transported. Heat must be managed. Power must run constantly, not for comfort, but for survival. Unlike other growing states, Arizona doesn't have natural buffers. There are no endless rivers, no mild summers to fall back on. Every new resident increases demand on systems that already operate close to their limits. And unlike housing, these systems can't be built overnight. They take decades. Decisions made years ago determine what Arizona can support today. One of the most dangerous ideas in fast-growing cities is the belief that tomorrow will look like today. As long as lights turn on, as long as water flows, as long as construction continues, everything feels stable. But stability in a desert is fragile. It depends on margins, and those margins shrink quietly. Arizona didn't hit its limits suddenly. It approached them gradually, one development at a time, one new subdivision at a time, one summer hotter than the last. Nothing broke all at once, which made it easy to believe nothing ever would. Of all the challenges Arizona faces, one sits quietly beneath everything else. It doesn't trend online, it doesn't dominate headlines every day, but it determines how far this boom can actually go. You can't build without it. You can't cool homes without it. You can't support millions of people without it. And unlike housing or infrastructure, this problem cannot be solved with money alone. It's limited, it's shared, and Arizona is using more of it every year. Growth doesn't strain a city all at once. It compounds. Each new resident doesn't just use water once. They use it every day, for drinking, for cooling, for cleaning, for landscaping, and in a desert, usage doesn't stay flat. It increases. Hotter summers mean higher consumption. Longer heat waves mean more demand on power and water systems at the same time. And when millions of people respond to heat in the same way, turning on air conditioning, watering property, using more water to stay cool, small margins disappear quickly. What once felt manageable begins to feel tight. Not because something failed, but because too many things worked at the same time. Arizona's growth wasn't designed for extremes. It was designed for averages, and averages don't survive record-breaking summers. Arizona didn't grow by accident. It grew because people believed in it. Developers believed demand would keep rising. Cities believed infrastructure would scale. Residents believed the lifestyle would remain affordable. And belief is powerful. It turns projections into commitments. It turns plans into permanent structures. Once that confidence is built into a city, it becomes difficult to slow down, even when conditions change. Housing projects can't be paused easily. Water agreements can't be renegotiated overnight. Growth locks itself in, and the longer it continues, the more expensive it becomes to admit limits exist. Arizona didn't ignore its constraints. It trusted that solutions would arrive in time, that technology, policy, or investment would fill the gap. Because in the past, they always had. Cities don't have an off switch. You can't unbuild homes. You can't ask millions of people to stop using what they rely on daily. Once growth reaches a certain scale, the question stops being how to manage it and becomes how to live with the consequences of past decisions. Arizona crossed that threshold quietly, not with a crisis, but with confidence. Every booming city eventually meets a limit it can't negotiate with. In Arizona, that limit isn't housing, it isn't demand, it isn't popularity. It's something far more basic. Everything we've talked about, the growth, the confidence, the momentum, rests on a resource that doesn't care about projections or belief. It doesn't respond to investment the way infrastructure does. It can't be scaled on demand. And once it's stretched too thin, the consequences ripple through everything else. Arizona's future won't be decided by how many people want to move here. It will be decided by how long its most essential resource can support them. Because in the desert, growth is always borrowed from something else. And that brings us to water. In the next video, we're going to look at how Arizona gets its water, where that supply actually comes from, and why the system supporting millions of people is far more fragile than it appears. Because once you understand the water, you understand the real limits of this boom. If you want to follow this series, Part 2 is already in progress. Subscribe if you want to see where this is heading. No hype, just the reality behind the growth.